So Games Workshop seems to be trolling fans with Ultramarines teasers. Let's take a look at a few Easter eggs and their merch launch associated with their news report, and do a general roundup of some Warhammer news, some really cheap guardsmen, a very expensive Warhammer Quest box set, and plenty more. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking about just what Games Workshop's doing with these Ultramarines things, and then doing a more general roundup of Warhammer news besides. As I'm sure a fair few of you have seen, Games Workshop have been trolling their fanbase a bit with the Ultramarines sort of protest video, though it also does seem to be genuinely associated with some Ultramarines merch, and it seems that we've at least got more coming next week. Then beyond that, let's round up a whole bunch of other video topics that I thought were interesting, though didn't really need an entire video all to themselves. This week's Warhammer releases, including Warhammer Quest Darkwater being disappointingly pricey, some very cheap Astra Militarum in the UK, Cadian shock troops and command squads being around about a third of the normal price, and a few other deals besides. It seems someone selling one of the original boxes of Space Marines for around about £4,000 or $5,000. The Red Gobbo gets some 40k rules. The Saturnine box set seems to be going down to an even lower price tag in the UK. And a few more minor reveals or teasers, including a rather cool new Shelob miniature for the Lord of the Rings. I'll also use this one to mention the Auspex Tactics channel giveaway at the end as well. This big one for December is going to be for 5 new Warhammer armies for 5 people, and if you'd like to know how to enter for that, I'll talk about it at the end of the video. As mentioned though, let's start with the Ultramarines, and in a bit of an unusual post from Warhammer community the other day, Games Workshop basically seemed to be trolling their audience in quite a fun way. Space Marines often have the meme of getting more releases than any other faction in Warhammer 40k. Games Workshop does like to sell a lot of miniatures to the faction with the most collectors, and they have been going through a particularly heavy and drawn out release wave recently. We had all of the Codex chapter characters associated with their combat patrols, the Crux Terminatus box with new Assault Terminators and the new Jump Captain around then as well. Some limited edition captains, including Captain Centos and Ferronareos, the recent Ultramarines release wave with Calgar, Sicarius, the Victrix Guard, and their new combat patrol, and then to cap it all off, we've now got Captain Titus for the 500 Worlds campaign, so Ultramarines on the cover for that, and Games Workshop's end edition campaign is going to be focused around Ultramar. It has meant that over the past month or so, reactions down in the comments have been getting a bit fatigued, particularly for all the other factions just watching Space Marines get loads more stuff that they would really enjoy to have themselves, and perhaps particularly so for a few neglected armies that might have really hoped for a range update this year, maybe Drukhari and the Grey Knights in particular. Games Workshop does seem to have shown they're pretty self-aware though, and served up a fairly fun troll video with a bunch of Easter eggs responding to the comments. Basically what they did was a short news report video. It's titled Fans Protest at Warhammer Headquarters, and then it seems assembled a crowd worth of actors and extras, basically telling us that fans have gathered to demand more Ultramarines, and there just simply haven't been enough so far. There's really quite a few fun Easter eggs there. It's presented by a presenter called Mark, who's apparently of Calth News, Calth being the planet where the Ultramarines and Wordbearers had a rather brutal conflict, and Mark of Calth both being the name of the book, and can also both refer to the Ultramarine combat doctrine and the radiation burns from the planet. Then we've got the news ticker scrolling along at the bottom, saying March 4th should be a public holiday, marching forth for the glory of the Primarch no doubt. Surveys say that the Wordbearers are just the worst, Gilliman's been voted best Primarch in an unbiased study, and the Codex Society is to be made an official part of the teaching curriculum for children of a certain age. The signs of the angry mob in the background are kind of fun. We don't want balance, we want blue, more Ultramarines more often. Not just more Warhammer more often this time. I quite liked We Stand With Blue Collar Astartes, Ultra Mad, or 500 Worlds Now. They had their merch on full display with Ultramarine Christmas jumpers and the Titus helmet as well. Then for the short contents, the interviewees had a few things to say. It's been 2 months since a new Marlies Calgar miniature now. I quite like the delivery and interaction of that one. Someone coming in with the stats that we've had more non-Ultramarine releases than Ultramarine releases in the last year. And perhaps the most potentially interesting is saying that we don't even have our own codex. Perhaps the single funniest thing though is they seem to have paired that up with a small merch range as well, just for all the people who want to join in on the pro-Ultramarines protest. Plenty of slogans on the signs there, as they changed it to more Primaris Lieutenants more often. It does look like you can literally buy those now if you wanted to, and I guess they'll be made by some print-on-demand companies. I think as a bit of fun marketing goes, this one did pretty well by my books. I'm not necessarily sure whether it's actually a teaser to anything. I guess they still have Ultramarine releases outstanding currently, Titus plus his Wardens of Ultramar plus the 500 World book associated with him, and given that they said that there was some sort of Titus content drop for him on Monday, and if they're doing that then maybe they'll release the 500 Worlds pre-order on Sunday. At first watch it does feel like it's more fun response to the Ultramarine criticism than teasing anything specific. Though admittedly, if it is just a bit of fun community engagement, it seems like they've gone a bit all out for it. Definitely a lot higher budget and a lot more effort than just putting together a fun article of one sort or another. The fact they did actually have a soundbite calling out an Ultramarine codex does seem to be a bit on the nose to me. I feel like the Games Workshop kind of rarely jokes about sort of mid-interest releases like that. They might make jokes about plastic Thunderhawks and things, but if they did want to do an Ultramarines Codex supplement, it's not exactly the most wild thing that they could do. They did do one of those in 8th edition after all, and after the recent release waves they do have quite a lot of data sheets they could potentially include. If it wasn't anyway a teaser for 40k miniatures, there's still plenty they could choose to do for the Ultramarines, though it perhaps seem a bit weird to be doubling down quite so heavily. Fury of Ventress has gone off sale, maybe he's just being dropped from the range, or perhaps they're doing an update for him. I feel like the Tetrarch Decimus Felix has been mentioned really quite a lot. He's certainly a fairly big presence in the lore if they did want to do a miniature for him, either a more full range one or perhaps a limited edition one of some sort. They do have other past characters such as Chaplain Cassius, Sergeant Telion and Sergeant Cronus, and they could do Tyrannic War Veterans, which might be appropriate enough given that the edition started with Ultramarines versus Tyranids. But also bear in mind that 40k isn't the only place that they could release Ultramarines if they wanted to. They have previously said that they're going to be redoing the Primarch models slowly over the years and representing the Primarchs at the height of the heresy. As has been mentioned in a good few comments, I believe that's also been previously rumoured by Chapter Master Valrak, so maybe a better chance than most. And beyond him though, they could do quite a lot more Ultramarines things for the Horus heresy if they wanted to, with things like Legion Praetors or Centurions or other named or generic characters. In any case, for all their memes, it does seem that they have just followed up immediately with another small Ultramarines release. The next day after dropping that trailer, they've shown off some Joy Toy action figures based on the secret level animation. This one's got Titus Mataurus and the other Blade Guard. It does feel like this is Games Workshop's all-in cash-in on Space Marine 2 arc right now. Before we move on, I'll just give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor in ObjectiveMarkers.com. They're makers of faction-specific objective markers based in the UK, and over the Black Friday weekend have a deal on for buy one get one half price with a code called BESTOW-A-BRO, which I'll leave linked in the video description. As the name implies, they make faction-specific objective markers. Their take on these ones are clear flexible silicone mats. They have a 40mm objective marker in the centre of them, and then a 3-inch scoring zone around the outside, so you can see which miniatures are within range to score an objective or out of it. The markings on them give a little faction-specific theme, and the clear disc design means that it doesn't detract too much from the table surface that you're playing on, and they feel quite nice overall to me. They've got a fair amount of different designs available at the moment. They made a faction-agnostic channel merch one with the Auspex design. Any sales of that one help to support the channel a little. But beyond that, they have a pretty good amount of others. Example designs to cover the majority of factions in the game now, everything from Chaos and Greenskins, various Power Armoured Warriors, and more recent designs that could fit with some specific chapters, or the Greater Good or Space Elves. In any case, you can find them linked down in the video description. They've got a few other things on their site, including some ruined terrain bases too. As mentioned for the objective marker design though, you have buy one get one half price for their current raft of Black Friday sales, thanks to them for sponsoring this one. It seems that this week's release is the Warhammer Quest Darkwater game that Games Workshop's been hyping up for a good few weeks now. This one follows on from their previous entries like Blackstone Fortress and Cursed City, and I feel like in the past they've generally been quite well made, self-contained little board games, coming with a bunch of pretty fun and interesting miniatures in the box set, and then they usually have some expansions that build on it after that. The pricing on this one does feel a bit abnormally painful though, even by Games Workshop standards. Looks like the price is $255, £160 or €205, so around about as much or more as recent Battle Force box sets, and really quite a lot more than things like Blackstone Fortress and Cursed City, which despite being a few years back were more in the sort of £120 mark or around $200-ish. Even accounting for inflation, it does seem like it's a bit of a jump. It's not the sort of game that's going to appeal to every Warhammer collector out there, so I feel like there's at least a good amount of people interested in picking up the game. I just wonder if it's going to be a few less than you might expect given the price it's at. From early reports from discount retailers, it does sound like there's probably going to be enough stock to go around. I'll never be 100% certain of that with Games Workshop though. Check out the channel's affiliate ones linked down in the video description if you wanted to save a bit versus Games Workshop with it. Wargame Portal in the USA for 15% off, Taschengeld Eep in Germany in the EU for somewhere between 16 to 20, or Toy Snowman or Fenris Workshop over in Canada, saving around 10 to 15%. A big thank you to anyone supporting the channel via those links. Next up, there's a couple of good deals on Imperial Guard and Genestealer Cult miniatures that cropped up in the UK over the past few hours, though it looks like one of them has been so good of a deal that it's sold out already. Basically, Forbidden Planet in the UK has announced their next batch of Combat Patrol magazines going on pre-order, and these often have some pretty excellent savings versus Games Workshop on the miniatures within them. the normal deal in the UK at least being £10 per magazine, and then from Forbidden Planet it's around £3.50 delivery, and it often has pretty vast savings compared with buying even via discount retailers. The notable ones for this wave of them were the Cadian Command Squad and the Cadian Shock Troops. I checked back just a second before recording these and it looks like the Cadian Shock Troops have gone, but at least at time of recording the Cadian Command Squad still seems to have miniatures available. So essentially £10 plus £3.50 delivery for a kit that's usually around £30 or so. Potentially that might be of interest to some of you. I'll leave it links down in the video description. Otherwise, there's two other ones that might be of potential interest. The field ordnance batteries for the Astra Militarum are split between issues 75 and 76. I think you need both of them, though it might be one gun per issue, I'm not sure. The savings on that aren't terrible, but they are a fair bit lower, around about 30% off or so, depending on whether you just get one set of them or more. The other potentially useful one could be for any Genestealer Cult players wanting a Goliath truck or rock grinder. That one's split between issues 69 and 70. Again, you need both of them, not just one. That looks like it equates to around about a 39% discount there. I'll leave the relevant ones linked down in the video description below. Finally, before we're quite done with UK deals, I also noticed that the Saturnine box set was on sale in the UK. This is the one that Games Workshop made really quite a lot of, and then several stores wound up requesting far more of them than people had demand to buy. They've often been discounted by various amounts in the past, though it looks like Imps Gaming seems to have them at just £100 per box set, so a fairly huge 50% off there. That does feel kind of unusual for a big Games Workshop big value box set, and might potentially be of use to both 40k players and Heresy ones. The Saturnine Terminators do make some rather good Obliterator proxies, and in particular all the Crusade armour can do well for Chaos Space Marines of certain stripes. Moving on, another small but interesting thing I found shared in a community group was someone selling one of the old Space Marine box sets. This one's an absolutely ancient box set of the RTBO1 ones, so basically the very first plastic Space Marines that Games Workshop ever made. It looks like it's a new sealed box, even if it's a bit of a funny shape. I guess there's very few of these out around in the world at this point, and it seems that the person that's selling it is asking for a fairly astronomical price, around £4,600, so roughly translating to around $6,100. Or over €5,000. Obviously it doesn't necessarily mean that it'd sell at that price. I guess it's kind of hard to put a value on that kind of thing, seeing as it's basically rare to the point of being basically unique. But then on the other hand, you'd have to be a rather dedicated and very wealthy collector to be spending this sort of money on any one box of model soldiers. Looks like the person selling it is a user called Brigade Support, and seems to perhaps a specialist or trader in this kind of thing. Pretty interesting to see a big mix of classic box sets and books of things that might not necessarily have been super rare at the time, but generally now are long gone, particularly in new and unopened condition. Next up, the Red Gobbo's Tinboy miniature has got some Legends rules. Games Workshop usually makes some fun token datasheets for their limited edition models of most stripes, and the Red Gobbo ones are no exception. It feels like, at least for a few of them, a bunch of the Red Gobbo ones have been kind of weirdly powerful for how many points they would be. Obviously the rules not aimed to be anything too super serious or competitive, seeing as they're Legends. But at 45 points, this guy looks like he'd be pretty auto-include if you could take him in a competitive Orcs list. The main reason is that he's a 45-point lone operative, which would always be great value just for board control and positioning style things, never mind him actually having some somewhat beefy stats. It's both got the lone operative rule and the walker keyword, and then perhaps bigger defense than I might have guessed. Looks like he's going for sort of can style stats, with 5 wounds at toughness 6, a 3+ save and a 5+ invulnerable. Has a few strength 5 damage 2 shots with his custom shooter up close, and a few attacks in melee with strength 6 and damage 2 there. His best damage comes from his special rule though, redistributing the gifts, which allows you to use the grenade stratagem for free. And between that, a good defensive profile and some mortal wounds being thrown out will be very hard to go wrong with him indeed. In any case, looks like some fun rules that could certainly make an impact in casual games. Otherwise, for miniature reveals, Games Workshop didn't have anything for 40k this Monday, but certainly had a pretty awesome resculpt of a classic Middle-earth miniature. They've got a new big chunky and rather menacing looking version of Shelob for the Lord of the Rings. Potentially could be a fun one if you need a giant spider miniature in plastic for any other means. And as a bonus you also get Gollum and Frodo miniatures as well, though the ring bearer perhaps not maybe looking his best self there. The Rumour engine this week maybe didn't look particularly 40k, perhaps something Sylvaneth for Age of Sigmar with their little forest minions, maybe some sort of slightly creepy snail bug thing going across a tree. It was interesting to see Be'lakor getting teased as well for the Warhammer Plus animations. Apparently he's going to be featuring in the Black Talon series. Interesting to see an animation of really quite a big character there. Finally, to round up for this one, I'll just mention the Auspex Tactics channel giveaway for December, where there's just a few days left before this one gets done. The prizes for this one are for 5 channel viewers to get a whole Warhammer 40k army, basically up to a value of $500 chosen from the Warhammer web store, so roughly translating into around £300 or €400-ish. For examples of what that might look like, here's a Tyranids idea, quite a big mixed army of bugs there. Here I went for the 40k starter set, a Hive Tyrant and Tyrannofex, both to get some big interesting monsters on the board. Some Horrors of the Hive for the Carnifex and Neurotyrant, Death Leaper and some Gene Stealers. That comes in at $494. Here's a Necron idea, this one building around their Combat Patrol for their Doomstalker, Scorpex and Overlord. They're supported by a Royal Court for a Plasmancer and then a Scorpet Lord to lead those destroyers. There's some Lich Guard for some faction elites, a Ghost or Doomsday Arc, and then some Burrowing Ophidian destroyers. Then here's one example for the Dark Angels, this one going with quite an elite Deathwing force, Lionel Johnson with 6 Inner Circle companions, Belial and a squad of Deathwing Knights, and then the Dark Angels Combat Patrol to bulk out for some numbers with the Intercessors, Blade Guard and Hellblasters. Whatever army you might be interested in, if you'd like to enter for it, there's 2 equal ways to enter, both of them linked down in the video description. Either you can support the channel on the Patreon page for any amount each month, that gets you automatic entry into the giveaways, and is the main thing that supports videos on this channel. A big thank you to anyone helping out there. Alternatively, you can enter the draw completely for free on Facebook using the Google form post that appears on the 1st of December. To be entered for that one, first subscribe to the YouTube channel and then like or follow the Facebook page. And then the Google form when it appears on midnight on the 1st, that'll ask you for a picture of any 40k miniature with your name and the date handwritten within the same photo. That bit just to make sure that it weeds out bots and spammers and prizes go to real hobbyists. Then 24 hours after that goes live, I lock the entries and do the draw, picking out the entries with a random number generator with everyone being entered just the once equally. I'll announce the winners in the channel update video around the 4th of December and models will be posted after I've received my orders of them. Check out the links in the video description if you'd like to enter for this one, and there'll be further similar giveaways each month. In any case, that's about it for this one. Thanks to Objective Markers for sponsoring the video. Check them out, linked down in the video description if you'd like to. They've got a whole bunch of faction-specific objectives, and as mentioned, they've got their buy one, get one half price for Black Friday with that BESTOW-A-BRO code. If you'd like to see more like this, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming out, usually with one each day. Check out the Patreon page if you'd like to support and keep these coming. Channel patrons get to see the occasional video early, occasional votes to see what sort of things happen next, plus entry to the giveaways and things. That's linked down in the video description below. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.